This lady was suffering from cancer. And when I got there, they had not eaten as a family. And for like 3 months, she was not on painkillers. So she was in a lot of pain. My name is Sharon Baranga. I am a daughter, a sister, an aunt, a grandmother. Apart from that, I'm a journalist. I enjoy my job. And yeah, I'm a Kenyan, a proud Kenyan. I was picked right from school by the Nation Media Recruitment Group. They came to school, they gave us a talk, and then after the talk, we were to write an exam, which we did, and then I was selected to join the Media Lab program, which is a management trainee program that is being offered to upcoming journalists. And then after 1 year, I was fully, engaged now. I joined the newsroom. So that's how I started. If you're in any learning institution and these opportunities come your way, usende kulala ama ninaenda watch movie ama nini, just okay. If you really want to kickstart your career, then these are some of those opportunities that are brought like on a silver platter. So at Nation, ndo naitanga ndio baba na mama, the kanu of my life, it really trained me and gave me exposure in my career. And then, was it 2020? COVID came and a number of us were retrenched because the business was not doing so well. That was in June, I think June 2020. 2 months down the line after June, that is August, September there, TV47 came calling and I joined the media house as an education editor. And I've been there until 2023 this year, June again. I think that's my transition month, maybe, I don't know. And I joined CGTN. CGTN came calling. And yeah, in local media houses, you'll find that more often than not, you're all Kenyans. But now going to transitioning to an international media house, you find that people are coming from all over the world. So that is one of the differences that are there between working for an international media house and a local media house. And then the workload. When it comes to local media, oh my God, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I'll not lie about that. It's a lot of work. International media house, yes, we are working, but you cannot really compare that workload. You still have a little bit of more free time for you when you're working, when you're comparing the two. Of course, the mullah is different, working for local and international. And then also an international media house gives you more exposure out there, because you'll find that most of the local media houses, the way they are designed, they're only targeting Kenyans. But now if you go to, for instance, CGTN that I work for, this is a global media house. So your reach is wider. The way I landed into education reporting was a bit of an accident. I remember I was in the NTV newsroom, and there was a lady who was the one who was doing education stories, and then she left and there was this gap. So one of the editors just asked randomly, who would want to fill this gap? And you take up, education and children's stories. And in these newsrooms, if you want to really grow your career, you need to have a niche. You cannot just be a general reporter. So I took advantage and I said, why not? I'm going to give it a shot. And that's how I started reporting for education and children. And as I grew in that skill of reporting, I just became so passionate. I really just loved the art of telling stories that, has to do with children and education. And my first international award was because of children's stories. It was the best in visual reporting for children's stories. I was awarded by the International Center for Journalists. They later also gave me a fellowship that took me to Switzerland and South Africa. I've been all around just because of telling education and children's stories. And one of the things that I would like to maybe encourage an upcoming journalist, find a niche. It can really help you grow your career. There's a story I went to cover in Kibra. It was during that COVID period. This lady was suffering from cancer. And when I got there, they had not eaten as a family. And for like 3 months, she was not on painkillers. So she was in a lot of pain. And this person's faith has not shifted from God. You know, you talk to them and the faith that they have, you're like, oh my God. And I've just been ranting to God the way I don't have bundles or, you know. So that really shifted my mind. I was like, wow, people are really facing like, you know, giant challenges out here, but their faith is steadfast. So how about you? At times you do stories and you go home and you cry. Like there's a kid I did a story on, and I was really hoping she was going to make it, and then 2 days later you're told this, you know, this child passed on. You know, some of these things always, at times they have a toll on you. Technology is a basic requirement for any journalist. There's no way you are going to, you know, stay away from technology. Even this phone, I can post a story on my social media. I can send stories to my editors. It's like the bedrock of any journalist. There's no way you can avoid technology. I think we have a very unfair audience. I believe Kenyan journalists, they do a lot. They go out of their way to just bring stories, you know, to your ears, to your eyes, whether you're reading or you're watching or you're listening to radio. Like we have journalists who really put themselves out there to bring you stories. We have an audience that is very judgmental. There's a way a local media story will be covered differently compared to an international media house, you know. And you cannot really compare the two. We have to look at what really appeals to the Kenyan audience. We have guidelines that we use that help us you can tell if a story is worth telling or not worth telling. Number one, prominence. For instance, if King Charles III is coming to Kenya, that already, with the prominence, that's already a story worth telling. You cannot say, no, we're not going to cover King Charles III. We're going to cover what? There are kids doing some, you know, sports somewhere in some school in Nandi County that we're going to cover and ignore this one. Though this has that element of prominence. So we have guidelines that, you know, allow you to measure whether a story is worth telling or not. If it is a human interest story, we are also looking at, for example, the story that I just mentioned of the woman who was terminally ill. We have a number of Kenyans who are terminally ill, and yet they cannot afford proper medication. So if you use this face of this woman to help tell the challenges that we have, that some of the Kenyans are going through, then that is also going to appeal or reach to the emotional, to the emotions of Kenya and of Kenyans. And if they can help, then they can help out, yeah.